Hi, welcome to today's Leaders in Mental Wellness and Diabetes, where you will hear insights from the top minds in the world of diabetes care. Hosted by Dr. Char.
Hello, it is so nice to meet you, Natalie.
It is so nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I have looked at your smiling face on all your posts, and they are so encouraging. So it is a delight for me to meet you. I want to jump right in. I know that you're type 1. And I'm so curious as how you got into this space of helping others. Just because we are type 1s, just because we deal with the disease, isn't ensuring that we get online and spend our lives helping others. What got you there?
Yeah, so I struggled really, really hard, not only with my diagnosis, dealing with chronic illness in general, but also suffering with an eating disorder associated with diabetes. And throughout my whole journey, I felt very alone. I did not have anyone to talk to who actually got it, who actually have walked the same shoes that I have, who has experienced the same things I have. And so how awesome I thought was I've been through so much with this disease, including complication, like I just mentioned, like the eating disorder and having it for 25, almost 26 years. If I could kind of share my story with others, what I've been through, and possibly someone who is out there that feels alone, that I could help them. And that's all I want, is to make sure no one ever feels alone on this journey, and that they're heard at the end of the day.
Oh, that is so good. That is so good. Because here sits this young, beautiful woman in front of me who deals with chronic disease, who deals with diabetes at the core with, type 1. We're talking, And then you're sitting in front of industrial, what looks like food arena around you. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what your world must be, and how good it is to have such a vibrant life representing us.
Absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah. I think my main mission is to really show people that no matter how bad you're struggling, no matter, how bleak it looks or how impossible it is, there is definitely a way to do it that works for you, that you can live a very happy, normal, and balanced life, 100%.
And if it's not normal, I've been doing this 48 years with this stuff. Who says normal is normal?
Yeah, I guess there's no real such thing as normal.
Who made that rule?
Normal's boring anyway. Who wants boring or normal?
So how are you growing your business in this space?
Absolutely. So as of right now, I am doing mentoring and one-on-one recovery coaching for those followers or listening to your podcast who don't know what diabulimia is. Basically, it is an eating disorder associated with type 1 diabetes. And what happens typically is someone who's suffering with diabulimia omits or takes less than needed insulin in order to manipulate their weight. And what's really sad is about 40% of women with type 1 diabetes will experience some sort of eating disorder. So with everything that I've gone through with the eating disorder, what I have been working with different colleagues and with the organization We Are Diabetes, I have recovery coaching where I really help people master diabetes, really heal their relationship with food, change their mindset, and try to get over this horrible eating disorder, because it's a very dangerous eating disorder, probably one of the most dangerous with entering DKA and whatnot. So again, it's just bringing awareness and helping those who are going through it, because it's more common than you could ever believe.
Well, the situation for me, knowing that it's common, is hard to grasp even now, because back in the day, no, I wasn't diagnosed, nor do I believe I had a full-blown eating disorder, but I don't know many of us that haven't neglected insulin knowingly or taken insulin, inappropriately to try to manage outside of the realm of healthy. Right. And so to know there's a community, a click of the button that can get us into a world where we can receive help. Makes me feel real grateful, not just for the little girl that I was that had nobody to turn to, but for now I can ask anybody, and I can admit that. Do you know there was a day, shoot, I wore a mask long before there was a pandemic.
Yeah.
And so I would have never told anybody, I don't think I lie. I'm too much. My personality is too much in your face, straightforward, and say what I think than to be a liar. But I think if my husband would have said, did you not take your insulin? Knowing what I was eating, I would have probably then, I don't remember doing this, but I would have probably then said yes, just to hide the shame of it all.
Oh, right? 100%. Yeah. And I think another thing too is stigma when it comes to, especially on the internet and media, of making sure our blood sugars are perfect and the amount of insulin we take. So it's very common too, again, not even having a full-blown eating disorder, like maybe you're restricting carbs just so you don't have to take as much insulin. There's so many different like degrees of disordered eating and disordered management when it comes to diabetes. And then when you throw on, I'm a big anti-diet culture girl. And if you throw on the diet culture that we are, subscribed to just generally as, especially us women, but then throw on top diabetes diet culture, oh my goodness, there's so many pressures on so many levels that I think it is, again, just so common for us, even if it's not a full-blown eating disorder, to have some sort of unhealthy relationship when it does come with our diabetes and food.
Well, when I read some of what you have out there and it says balance, when it comes to those disordered eating places, what do you describe as balance?
One of the number one topics I teach with my clients, and something that I find is very, very important, is not living in the all or nothing mindset. And that's where I feel balance comes into play. And it's being okay with the gray area. So what does that look like possibly? That's looking, when it comes to food, instead of eating just low carb, like it's okay to, if it's your birthday, or even hell, if it's a Wednesday night, like if you feel so inclined to eat rice and whatnot, you can do that. It is more than okay, but it's also okay to have a salad. There's nothing wrong with one or the other. And, making sure that, your mindset is not so focused on being perfect when it comes to diet. And again, with the diabetes too, there are just going to be some days your blood sugar is going to be so good and you feel on top of the world. And then some days the sky is blue and your blood sugar is high. So it's about being okay with that gray area and like not being so one way or the other, that I think is so important. And especially within the eating disorder mindset, is not worrying about being one way or the other, living in the gray area, being okay with having some good days, some bad days, eating foods that are a wide range, having pizza for dinner. And then if you want to have a salad for lunch, that's okay too. It's, again, living in the gray, I think, is what really sets people up for success for finding balance.
And don't you think it's phenomenal, or is it just because I'm old? Everywhere you can get good. I mean, there was a day when I would be thrilled to find a restaurant that literally catered to my needs. I mean, just to find one occasionally. I go into this pizza and pub the other day that I wouldn't have ever dreamed that would have a cauliflower crust. So if I were to eat bread from a regular pizza, well, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But can you imagine? I can eat 2 pieces with cauliflower crust. I mean, I was like so thrilled to know that. So everybody's getting into the helpful place of that. That must mean that there's a knowledge coming forth out of all this inundation of knowledge. We can go to Google University today and we can be so overwhelmed in this community, but that's getting out there. The word's getting out there that we are not settling anymore, and we are an entity to be reckoned with. And so I think that's wonderful. Don't you? That's
what? Oh my goodness, 100%. I mean, for heaven's sakes, Chipotle now has cauliflower rice. You know what a game changer that is? That's fantastic.
So it's like, I remember when I didn't even have a monitor to tell me my blood sugar on my phone. Heck, I didn't have to stick my finger even then. I peed on a stick. I mean, we've come so far. But tell me what it's like for you. While it's wonderful in the middle of the night for it to tell us when we have a low, tell me what it's like for you and the people you work with when you can't unknow it. It's like every 5 minutes. Can it be overboard? Can it be too much knowing?
I think like to a degree. And I think it's understanding, that the numbers, like people get too attached to the numbers, like, oh, it's good, oh, it's bad. But really realizing that the number right there is just data. And I think not holding that number as to your worth or holding it to if you're a good or bad diabetic, I think that's very important. And like changing the way you think about seeing those numbers all the time. Also, too, I think like distancing yourself a little bit. I myself right now, I am a very old school diabetic for certain reasons right now, but I test my blood sugar. I don't wear a CGM and I do multiple daily injections. And when I did have the CGM, and what I do suggest with some clients is obviously talking to your doctor first, but taking what I call breaks and, have that naked shower, as we call it, without your devices. Maybe, one night a week, if you're feeling so overwhelmed with those numbers, turn off the alarms. A couple hours is not, going to kill you. Take breaks where you can. I know we can't really take breaks as diabetics, but setting those boundaries, even with your devices, are very important, I think, for our mental state. So we're not so into like the CGMs and checking our blood sugar all the time. I think obviously being smart about it, and like I said, talking to your doctor, but turn off those alarms. Take a naked shower every once in a while. Just take a CGM break too if you need to. You have to do, this is for the rest of our lives. So you have to, take those moments where you can take a break and use them. Otherwise, you're gonna get burnt out.
Oh, I just love you. Where did you get so much wisdom in that young new face? So my next question is personally for you. When you were diagnosed, what age were you and how did that emotionally impact you?
Well, I have to be honest. I was 4, almost 5. So I don't really remember my diagnosis so much.
Oh, wow.
And I think, to be honest, I actually, weird enough, I feel really lucky to have been diagnosed at such a young age because I don't remember life before, like having diabetes. So it's just always been a part of my life. And I do think like definitely different aspects later on in life, definitely it took an emotional toll on me. I think growing up as a teenager, not only was I a little ashamed of, I would always have to like stop and take my medicine, and like definitely it made me kind of stand out from the rest of my friends. And then later on dealing complications and having to, miss out on career opportunities and certain events. That does definitely take a toll, but I know it sounds so cliche and so cheesy, but I do feel like everything does happen for a reason. And that, even if I do felt like, a door closed for me because of my chronic illness, it opened to another door that was meant for me and something that, I'm very grateful for now. But definitely like I can see where people, when they first get diagnosed, especially later on, can have a really hard time because they do, they know life without diabetes, and it can be very overwhelming to have to all of a sudden do a whole lifestyle change.
Yeah. Well, for me, I was a teenager, so I don't know an adult life without it, but
Yeah.
I didn't know to be grateful during my childhood without it, but I did have that time. So that's interesting. The perspective of not remembering. You had good support, I hope, during those formative years with that.
Yes, 100%. My whole family comes from the medical side. My mother was a former reconstructive plastic surgeon, so she like knew a lot about diabetes and just like health things in general, even though that wasn't like exactly what she practiced, but she had the understanding that
Sure.
maybe not the average run of the mill mom would. And my father was a type 2 diabetic, and since I could remember. So it was a weird kind of actually, like I was always a daddy's girl, but we had this special bond because we were the diabetics in the family. And so I always felt very well supported when it came to my diabetes.
That's so good. So you seem on your post, it seems that you, and we can all make it be all together on video. I mean, shoot, if I have to redo a 30-second video 50 times to get it how I want, right? I mean, I am a newbie at this, and it's just my emotions are more in upheaval around making the video than the diabetes I'm talking about.
I'm the same way.
It's been a crazy journey. So, but knowing that people look at us sometimes a little skeptical about their struggles emotionally, and even checking their blood sugars and the disordered eating and all that, they look at us as if, well, if you're saying that, your life must be perfect. You must not know what I'm going through.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you tell people? How do you help someone? How do you help a young girl today that's maybe a teenager and she's getting ready for a prom? Well, prom's over now, but and she's feeling the pinch of all this around her. Let me interrupt my own self here.
Yeah.
I met a waitress yesterday who you can't help but identify when you see a pump, she, you either see her, she sees yours, something goes on and you connect, right? And some of the sad things she said to me that she didn't mean to be sad made me know my support has been wonderful.
Yeah.
So if you were talking to that young teenage girl or somebody in her 20s in college and she's trying to navigate this journey, what's the one thing that you would want her to know?
I think the biggest thing I would want someone to know is that, like, be loud and be your own advocate, especially if you're struggling. I think that's where I struggled way longer than I needed to be because I was quiet about it. And I think this goes for anything. So that's what I tell my clients too when they're afraid to, speak to doctors about what's going on, or, they need to set boundaries with family members or tell family members they're struggling. The more loud you are about what your needs are, and the more you're going to be so surprised about how people actually do want to help you. You don't have to keep it all in. Diabetes is hard. Diabetes is a lifelong disease, and there is so much to it. We can feel overwhelmed. We can be burnt out. We can be tired. We can be frustrated. Tell someone this. You don't have to keep this all in, even if they, can't like directly help you in that situation. Maybe just like talking it out will feel better. Don't keep it in. Advocate for yourself. If something feels wrong, if you're struggling, especially when it comes to the eating disorder, so many people are afraid to talk to doctors because of what they've heard in the past, because diabulimia is not recognized in the DSM. So a lot of doctors don't even know about it. And so they feel like they, reach out and they're, pushed back down and like not getting the help they need. Like, keep on scream it from the rooftops. Just really share your story. And I think that's another thing I realized just with like being on social media is sharing your story. And you're going to be, again, so surprised with how many people want to help you, how many people are willing to go out of their way to check in on you or, talk to you about certain issues. Just don't keep it in, because if you keep it in, it's going to be miserable.
Well, that is so good. Some time back, I'm talking quite a bit of time back, I guess, as I think about it. But when I would encourage, I'll use that as a nice term. When I would encourage other therapists, other leaders in my space, I'm a counseling psychology specialist, but when I would encourage people to talk to the clients they had about any of their disordered eating or the such. And I'm not talking about just having the patient for an eating disorder, but I'm talking about any of those things around it. And I would offer suggestions as how to go in and help and talk to them about it, open the conversation up. Other professionals around me, some believed that you talk about it when it comes to disordered eating, maybe not everything else diabetes related, but they thought you were opening a door to inform the patient on how to do it. I mean, you helped me with today. Is that still an issue today, or was that old school and that's already gone?
No, I'm so glad you brought this up, because this is actually something that I struggle with a lot with my posts, because I do get a lot of engagement and a lot of people viewing my posts. And when I tell them about my struggles or what diabulimia is, I am afraid sometimes that by me sharing my, like, what it is, or like putting out awareness, could spark the idea out there for some young impressionable male or female. And it's tough, but I think the pros and cons out each other. I feel like awareness is much more important. Not more important, but I think bringing awareness, and the number of people that come to me and say, oh my goodness, this is what I had no idea this was a name, etc., is, I think, so important. And it's a fine line. I still don't know exactly what the right answer to that is. I just kind of pray that, people will, not take my journey and use it as their own, but almost as, something to bring caution to. I share a lot about the complications that diabulimia has caused me, and hoping that will deter them from possibly partaking in that. But yeah, it's a fine line. I'm not quite sure what the right answer is, but I can get it from both sides.
Yeah, I just know I don't mean to say this negative, but I felt criticized. I felt that there was a real concern. And for me, that generated from fear. And for me, I can deal with awareness and make good choices. And I'd rather believe in the person and they're wanting the knowledge for good reasons. That doesn't mean someone won't take it and misuse it. And I also believe we have to stay in our lane. As far as my expertise, I try my best to stay in my lane and not offer something that I'm not aware of. But 100%. But I think that, okay, well, one of the things I read that you put was stop listening to diet culture. If you didn't put that, I wouldn't be knowledgeable of that I can square my shoulders and stick my little head up and make choices for myself. That's what it makes me aware of. It doesn't make me know that I can, as a diabetes patient, it doesn't make me think that I can forget any diet, that I don't have to watch. I don't have to watch anything I eat. I can ignore. That's the bully inside my head. But the chicken in my head is the one that says, don't help somebody else because they may take it the wrong way.
Yeah. So, and I think, and I guess bringing like caution to it. Also, like you just said, like staying in your own lane. Like I did go to Michigan State for dietetics to be a nutritionist. I did graduate, but unfortunately I did not get my RD. And so I know things about nutrition, but I'm not a dietitian. I cannot give you meal plans. That is not who I am. I am not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I cannot, help you with your treatment of your eating disorder. I am literally just a mentor, someone who, can tell you what I've been through and, suggest what I can. But it's, again, it's so important for us to stay in our own lane. And that's another thing. I have a whole issue with some social media where, people, bring a sense of authority where it's not meant to be, and it can be very dangerous. So exactly like you said, I say don't listen to diet culture, but at the end of the day, your diabetes best, you have your team, you're going to do what's best for you. I personally, I love eating carbs. I eat carbs all the time. I preach eating carbs. But hey, if you do really well on low carb and you feel great on low carb and you have no issue with it, you do you. Go off. I love it. Eat low carb. I have nothing against that. So just, I think with everything in my posts and everything that I say as well, you have to see what works for you and what doesn't work for you. What works for me is not going to work for the next diabetic. And I think that's really important as well.
Well, I think the awesome thing that I have found in you, first of all, you have the look for social media. I asked my team, could we have an avatar for me? Look at this face, look at my age. Could we have an avatar? But quite honestly and seriously, when you say things like carbs are not the enemy, the way you can do it, the way you can relate that message, it is to the absolute culture that needs to hear it. It is not it's not overstated with information. And sometimes the expertise, we try to give it in clinical terms. I don't mean to. I'm a country girl. Everything's simple about me, but I get told all the time, now tell me that again. Because sometimes when you study in one language, it feels like it's not being translated. I don't know why that is, not especially as simple as I am, but it is true that you come onto a space that the words you use, the verbiage you have is intriguing, and it pops out at you. And it's what we need. Yes, I think it's important that we know our lane. And I'm a big advocate of making sure that I stay in mine. But when I look back at the seriousness of the things you've dealt with and you're helping others with, and you're doing it in this space where I never had the opportunity to have it when I was your age. Never had someone that could speak so boldly to me. So if all I heard was my strong voice, I might feel like that it was wrong. But if someone had ever spoken up and took the chance and got out of their fright enough to give me an opportunity as a young type 1 to think for myself and believe in me that I would make the good choices for myself, then I feel like I'm preaching it now, but that is exactly who you are, I think.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. And honestly, even like for myself, I was growing up in high school was when Facebook came out. So I didn't have the Instagram until college. I didn't have all the social media like this either. I had like weird Google sites and whatnot, and no sense of like community. I think just the same as you, if I had someone telling me these messages, I think I would have really saved myself from a lot of damage and probably would not have been in such a horrible situation with this eating disorder or diabetes management. I maybe not even would have had the eating disorder. Who knows? And I think, again, that's just why I think what you do, what I do, it's just so important that we connect with people, build this beautiful community that is the type 1 diabetes community and diabetes community in general. And, we give some hard lessons, and that's, it's so helpful. I think, I don't even think like we understand how much we touch and encourage people's lives. I think it's just, social media is really actually so beautiful. I've been so blessed to be a part of it and to be able to help others.
Well, I am just glad that you dive into the hard stuff. When I say hard stuff, I don't want that to seem like any more difficult or any more untouchable than any other aspect of our days, because I know there's so many aspects of it. But some, as you know, some aspects are accepted easier than others to be talked about. And you delve into the hard stuff, and my hat's off to you for that. I remember the first time I heard a woman say, my son has been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. He's 8 years old, and I'm not taking him into a dirty bathroom ever to give him a shot. I will never forget how I squared my shoulders. I flipped my head. And from that day to this, and I too am not wearing a pump right now. I'm injecting multiple times a day. And I too never have been back in a nasty bathroom to take a shot. Now, I don't make a big scene of it. I don't draw attention to it any more than I have to. I'm under a table, just nobody hardly recognizes, but just that one mama's voice gave me the courage when I hated that. And my mama made me a little clean freak as it was. And so I hated going in there, even laying my supplies down.
Yeah.
And all of those things that nobody that hasn't been there wouldn't get. But that one mama's voice changed my life. Over one small thing. So when it comes to something like disordered eating, whether it's a full-blown diagnosis or not, we're talking about diabetes and that somebody needs to have a voice. And for those times that I've tried and I do what I do, I'm allowed a little more in it than not just in the social media realm. And of course I talk about it with patients, but you're just on target. And I trust my goal in doing this podcast was to build a relationship with you, because I'm trying to build my space here. And oh God, it's I'm trying to build that. So my goal was to build a relationship with you. But the other thing was to say to anybody that would hear me who those people are that can be shakers and movers in the life of a diabetes patient. So tell us where they can find you. Tell us where in the heck they can understand about the balance, and that carbs, let me see, how do you say it? Carbs are not the enemy.
No, they are not. So I am primarily on Instagram, and you can find me at @balance_. I also have a private Facebook group called the Balanced Diabetic Community, and that is a really safe place that we talk about eating disorders, diabetes, chronic illness, just life in general. We have moms. We literally have people from all teenagers, moms. We have everyone in there, and I do weekly live trainings on different topics involving mindset and whatever people need help with. Like they write in the comments like, hey, can you talk about this and that? We just did, or actually this week we're going to be doing about how to start introducing more positive self-talk and how important affirmations are. I'm a big sucker for affirmations. I love affirmations. So you can find that on Facebook, again, at the Balanced Diabetes Community. And we would love to have you. Again, it's a safe place to ask questions, judgment-free zone, especially when it comes to eating disorder and recovery. We've all been there. All these women have gone through most likely the same thing that you have. So you definitely will not feel alone. So I think it's a very awesome group. Personally.
Well, I hope that on my end that I never have to lose touch. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Fantastic.
I love I'm going to go see what I can find of you even later today that I may have missed. Thank you so much. And until we meet again.
Until we meet again, this has been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.